So, some general approaches to the chapter. We've separated it out. We've continued the focus, of course, on white leghorn type and brown egg layers, and we've included pullets and layers together. So the chapter starts with a nice historical overview, moves into a global production perspective, and then we get into the nutrient requirements. This is a recurring theme, and it's a plea to members of the audience and the research community. We need more research on requirement studies for layer pullets and layer hens. And you'll notice as I go through this that there's a lot of requirement or recommendations that have not changed from the previous report. Now, with broilers, the decision was made to move towards, rather than reporting requirements on an age basis, reporting requirements on a body weight basis. And we've taken a similar approach with the laying hens, particularly the hens, but expressing the requirements or trying to express the requirements in terms of the stage of production, body weight, and egg mass. So we've separated this into a peaking or a pre-peak, a peak, and a post-peak period, as you'll see in the tables. Starting with amino acid requirements, the empirical data that is published is mostly on methionine and lysine. And so when we felt we had reliable data on lysine, we used that as the basis for an ideal amino acid ratios, and that's based on Breggendaal's paper for true digestible amino acids. We also incorporated some energy and digestible lysine requirement factorial models that are reported alongside the empirical data, and there's a couple of models that were used for the pullets, and another model based on the Redding model for layers that Dr. Sakamura published. Okay, so as you see the tables when the report is released, we've taken a similar approach to the 1994 report in that values that are in a normal font, these are based on empirical studies where we're confident in the nutrient requirements, and so we're calling those minimum requirements. Values that are in bold italics are called guidance levels, and these are based on estimates that are due to insufficient experimental data for various reasons. And then we also, in addition to that, have shading of various cells in the table, and these are values that are carried forward from the 1994 report, and that's basically because no new studies are available. So I'll just introduce how I've set, or how the tables are set up. We've got crude protein. We know that there's not a crude protein requirement per se, but this is basically practical diets that contain an adequate amino nitrogen supply for synthesis of non-essential amino acids, in addition to the essential amino acids. Now, those numbers are not requirements. Of course, they can be reduced when we use proper balancing of diets using synthetic amino acids. Okay, so Rose bragged that her arrows were bigger, but I have more. So again, as Rose mentioned, the final report has not been approved, so we can't release the numbers. But I did want to give an indication of sort of the direction of the nutrient requirement changes. So here we have the amino acid requirements, and for the pullets, we've kept it at various ages because that's been relatively consistent for quite a period of time, and we didn't see that changing an awful lot. So amino acids, you can see most of them, particularly when we use the model, we see an increase versus the 1994 report. Looking at linoleic acid and macrominerals, trace minerals, really the only new data that we felt comfortable making a change was for non-phytate phosphorus requirements, and there's a decrease in non-phytate phosphorus. And it's kind of a theme if we look at vitamins, water-soluble vitamins, fat-soluble vitamins, no changes, just simply because there has been no requirement studies that met the criteria. And so if you look at, there are a large number of vitamin papers, but typically they're looking at different forms of vitamins and comparing one form versus another rather than actual requirement studies. So those are the requirements for white pullets. We have separate tables for brown pullets. And again, you can see that in almost all cases, the amino acid requirements have increased relative to the 1994 report. Similar to the white pullets, we've recommended a decrease in non-phytate phosphorus for brown pullets. And again, looking at vitamins, there wasn't really any data that would warrant changes in the recommendations from the 1994 report. Okay, now looking at the layer requirements. So we've changed the way that we've expressed the requirements, taking sort of a factorial approach that takes into account the body weight of the birds, or typical body weight of the birds, the egg weight, so the weight of an average egg, but also the average daily egg mass, which is the level of production multiplied by the average egg weight. So expressing this a little bit differently than we have in the past, and hopefully this is going to be a means of making it easier to apply nutrient requirement models as the production level changes with improvements in genetics. So again, broken down into a peaking, or you might call it a pre-peak, and then a peak and a post-peak period. In the white layers, we see most of the changes that are incorporated reflect increases relative to the 1994 report. There are a few that have stayed the same, and a number that have actually decreased as genetics have advanced. In the case of minerals, we've recommended increases in the dietary calcium level and a decrease in non-phytate phosphorus. We've also added a little bit of verbiage about the way that calcium is supplied. So the recommendation is a 50-50 ratio of coarse to fine particles in layer diets. And again, the coarse particles are intended to gradually release calcium over the dark period at night to maintain shell quality. The small particles are readily available then when the lights come on. And as the birds get older, the recommendation is to increase the proportion of large particle calcium for the same reason. I will just point out that there is a lack of data available for digestible calcium requirement. This is one of the recommendations of the committee, that this is important information that we should have going forward. Okay, so looking at vitamins, again, not really any data, no new studies that would allow us to make confident changes in the amount of vitamins that are required. Looking at brown layer nutrient requirements, again, expressed assuming body weights, egg weight, and egg mass. For the brown egg layers, we actually saw a fair number of amino acids for which the recommendation has decreased. There's a few that have increased, but more have decreased. And then again, similar to the white egg layers, we see an increase in the recommended, or the calcium requirement for brown egg layers, and a decrease in the non-phytate phosphorus, and no change in vitamins. Okay, some context that we are aware of, but we really didn't have the data to address. First of all, we know that egg production cycles have gotten longer and longer. This probably increases the importance of the pullet phase for setting the bird up for success, and we don't have good requirement data going out going out on those long extended laying cycles. There's also been a move away from forced molting, and so we didn't really address that other than to acknowledge that situation. We have not addressed the nutritional manipulation of products. So again, omega-3 enrichment, mineral enrichment, or vitamin enrichment, but that is certainly something that may be relevant moving forward. and the effects of changes in housing. So extensive housing versus intensive housing, floor or aviary systems versus cage systems can have a big impact on energy expenditure and nutrient requirements as well. So the committee recognizes that these are real things. We recognize that these are probably important things that influence or have an impact on the nutrient requirements, but we just didn't have the data to be able to do that. Okay, so in summary, little new nutrient research has been conducted since 1991, which was when the literature review phase of the previous report stopped. The work that has been done is primarily on amino acids, and we are hoping that in the future we will have more and better factorial models to predict nutrient requirements to address changing genetics, extended production cycles, and changes towards extensive housing. So thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to ask Todd to come up, and he has an announcement.